Hi, welcome to Stand With Us. I'm Roz Rothstein, and today our guest is from Canada. Her name is Merle Cates, and she runs the Canadian branch of Stand With Us. Welcome, Merle.
Thanks, Roz.
So you have a lot of action going on lately, and we'll talk about that later, but first let's do a little bit of groundwork on you. What was going on for you before you ever came to Stand With Us? We had the Intifada began in 2000, and I think probably for most people who began to lead for Israel in the diaspora, that was probably an awakening for you.
It was. My background was in public relations, marketing, fashion, beauty business, nothing to do with nonprofit or Jewish causes or Israel. But in 2000, I sent my daughter on the March of the Living. And the Federation in Toronto at the time wanted to eliminate their trip to Israel.
Why?
They felt that it wasn't safe. So
I see.
A group of us got together and said they may not go to Poland without going to Israel. And the people who believed strongly that they were frightened didn't send their children. We did. And in fact, I got my adult son to meet me from New York, and we visited her there.
So this was in 2000 or 2001?
That was in 2001. In 2000, my daughter was attending a private school, and the chaplain, because they had a chaplain, came to the assembly and said the Jews killed Christ. It was close to Easter. The 30% student population that was Jewish didn't hear, but my daughter did. She came home and she said, I'm going to the Jewish high school. And
Wow.
she did the following year. And I realized that there was an element of anti-Semitism in Toronto that I recognized before I moved to New York 18 years prior, and that it was subliminal, but that Israel was considered a bully by Christians. And as I say to people...
Well, probably not by all Christians, but by some.
But there was
some.
an element of the society that that still had a certain amount of anti-Semitism.
Okay, so fast forward through the Intifada, I think you began to get involved. At what point, at what year? And just as a volunteer, you started putting things together.
I started volunteering, and I started working with an organization that brought in speakers, and I began a business lunch lecture series in the legal financial center, mainly for lawyers and financiers on our Bay Street, which is like Wall Street in Toronto. And it grew from 30 people to 150.
Wow, people were really...
We did it about once a month. Well, provocative
interested.
speakers, people like the guests you've had on this show in the past, who were advocating for Israel or civil rights or fighting against anti-Semitism, and it just grew.
So, and you did this as a volunteer?
Yes, in the beginning.
What organization were you working with?
An organization called Speakers Action Group, and later a group of the lawyers. In fact, after we had Judge Hadassah Benito from Jerusalem, I'm sure you know who that is, come to speak, Hadassah Benito spoke about the protocols of the elders of Zion. And she fought in the World Court from Jerusalem to try to ban the book. And it was a case that went on for 12 years. It just never had enough political will, unfortunately. And we have Muslims still in Toronto telling us that they arrive in Islamabad and it's handed out at every market, every fair they go to. It's free.
Wow.
Stacks all over. So we know that minds are being influenced.
No,
and
we know that, and it's such a shame. So the years then of the Intifada continued, and you mentioned before we began the show today that you had already heard about Stand With Us. So what?
I was using Stand With Us materials, and I was learning from Stand With Us materials because there was no one really practicing Israel advocacy in the way that I believed it should be. I wanted to bring in speakers who were not simply propagandists, but who were speaking about Israel in a positive way. And then about 2007, I guess, our new Consul General, Amir Gisson, arrived in Toronto with the branding proposal about Israel, which made a tremendous difference in the way people were thinking about Israel, and I wanted to market it. I'm a marketing person.
Well, what's so interesting is it's branding. You know, it sounds like it's phony baloney when we say branding. We're going to brand something. We want to brand me. You know, but the truth is that, you know, unfortunately, with all the news out there, when they talk about Israel, it looks like the struggle, the tension, the war in the Middle East. It's always about that, and there's so much more to Israel. So when we talked about branding, it's really, there should be another word for it, because the branding really implies that let's do something that doesn't really exist. Let's put a slap a,
You're right.
you know,
There should be
a
another
profile
word for it.
that. But really, what's true is that Israel is a forerunner in technology, and in so many ways helps third world countries, and is incredible in the area of humanitarianism, and people simply do not know. So he talked about branding. We should have really called it informing.
Well,
informing
we
people.
should have called it re-educating, because we have a public that was being educated about all the negatives about Israel and only about the conflict, and they had no way of learning about what Israel really was. That 20% of the population is Israeli Arab, that sit on the government, that work in every aspect of the community.
The map, the tapestry of people.
No one knew.
Just anything, any number of things that, oh my God, that Israel was the first on the ground in Haiti.
Right.
And
With a
that,
field
you know,
hospital.
with
I brought the speaker out.
Israeli field hospital, and you can order this, by the way, for free. If you're watching right now, you can send a note to shipping@standwithus.com and request one free booklet from us on any number of topics, and we will send it to you. But the point is, you found the speakers began to shed light on not just the conflict, but also on some of the other amazing things about Israel.
I, in fact, went on a mission, a cultural forum, 9 of us from Canada, went to Israel to see culture, so that we could bring it back and present it. And we saw some of the best music and theater and dance in the world that needed to be brought to North America.
Well, that you're right about. So we're going to continue our conversation when we get back from the break with Merle Cates, who is the director of Stand With Us in Canada. So we'll be right back.